So as I'm sitting down to write my thoughts about the new album by Sharon Van Etten and the Attachment Theory, I quickly discovered that Sharon Van Etten herself is celebrating what is her 44th birthday, so it's only fitting that I felt inspired to discuss this album that I've had on repeat for the past few weeks. As I sit here, the bass line from the track titled "I Can't Imagine Why You Feel This Way" singes the hairs on my arms, so it's making it harder to type as I'd rather just sit here and vibe with this for a little while longer. But I believe in delayed gratification, so I know once I'm finished making this video, I'll have this masterpiece of an album waiting for me on the other end. So as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of what has emerged from Sharon Van Etten deciding to work with her touring band on creating their own album altogether. With this being her 7th album overall, she's not new to the scene by any means, as she has been a mainstay within the indie rock world, with her most recent album prior to this one arriving in 2022 titled "We've Been Going About This All Wrong." While on tour for that album, Sharon realized that she had indeed potentially been going about it all wrong, as she eventually grew tired of herself and encouraged her band to vibe within some jam sessions to see what would come of it. The aforementioned "I Can't Imagine Why You Feel This Way" and my personal favorite from this album, "Southern Life," were two songs that emerged from that experiment. So what had she been missing? I listened to her previous 2022 album when it came out, and I loved many songs within it, but now it's clear to me that deciding to collaborate with her bandmates on new material was something that would greatly benefit her sound. As Sharon Van Etten is having her own Eddie Vedder no-code moment, that idea of surrendering to her peers and putting her trust in others comes across crystal clear on the 4th track titled "Trouble." This song is the musical equivalent of a vocalist and songwriter leaning back for a trust fall as her band catches her like a feather. While spacey in the mid to high end of the song, bassist Deborah Hoff moves around the fretboard with ease and crafts one of the best bass lines I've heard within a song this decade. Once I read the following quote from Sharon Van Etten on the meaning of trouble, I've got to say I fell in love with it even more. It strikes a chord within myself as I grapple with the world around me and try to navigate treacherous waters within some close relationships. The following quote is from Sharon herself. "Trouble is about the idea of having to coexist with people you love who have opposing views and not being able to share deep parts of yourself and your narrative based on someone else's beliefs. It's about when there's that big part of you that someone who loves you can't know because it's not something they want to hear or are willing to learn about or understand. And those painful realizations when you choose to love and respect someone else's needs over your own to salvage a relationship." To me, this is a beautiful way to approach songwriting, and it showcases how personal she can make a song for herself, but still leave enough for everyone else to draw their own inspiration from it as well. So earlier, I was giving enough credit to her band, The Attachment Theory, to the point where I'm almost making it seem like this album wouldn't be possible without their input. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but let's be clear. The star of the show and the driving force is most certainly still Sharon Van Etten. While each track possesses qualities within the arrangements that make each track pop in their own way, her voice is such a strong presence that you're always aware of her vocal talent, even amongst some masterful performances by her band. The lead-off track titled "Live Forever" is the perfect example of this, as once the mood of the song ramps up, we're treated to some of the silkiest, prettiest vocals you'll hear from anyone. Afterlife was the first single dropped as a part of this project, being released back in October of 2024, or about 4 months prior to when the whole album would be released in full. Within Afterlife, we see her questioning someone special if they'll still be able to connect once they've both passed on. One thing about her is that there is no topic that is too heavy to address, and even within the track focused on what comes after death, we see into Sharon Van Etten's mind as the fear of never seeing that special person again seems to hit her hard enough that I find myself rooting for her that she can find the answer she is hopeful for someday. Within the track titled "Indio," I can't help but feel some strong Always vibes, as it sounds like something that would fit right along with anything on Blue Rev. This is right up my alley, so obviously no complaints there. I just see a lot of parallels between the quick drum beat and Sharon Van Etten climbing up to the higher end of her vocal register for this one. Idiot Box is a song towards the beginning of this album that taps into sort of a modern topic, which is the critique of the isolation caused by our addictions to smartphones, as she urges us to distance ourselves a bit from our idiot box and to come outside and connect with reality for a bit. I love the line within this one where she says, "Call me out with the blue light eyes." Without the context of what this song is about, this really wouldn't mean much, but with our increasing knowledge of blue light exposure from screens leading to fatigue, headaches, and eye sensitivity, she's daring the listener to do something about their current condition. One of the more fun-sounding tracks on the album is one titled "Somethin' Ain't Right," in what can be defined as an ode to Talking Heads. The drums charge ahead on this one in a way that is impossible not to nod along to, as we ask anyone within earshot if they believe in compassion for enemies.
Do you believe in compassion for enemies? Who is to blame when it falls to decay?
Fading Beauty is the slowest part of the album, where Sharon Van Etten delivers a dreamlike performance that makes us feel like we're in this cloud of heartbreak that hasn't quite set in yet. Then rounding out the album is I Want You Here, a track that seems like a plea to a lost lover. The smoothness of her vocals in the previous song, Fading Beauty, gives way to still a gorgeous but more gritty delivery. I'll say these last two tracks back to back are the only thing I'd change about this album, because having this sleepy way of finishing this album almost lets us take too much of a deep breath at the end. But honestly, they both still stand strong on their own, and they still aren't skips by any means. But sandwiched amongst the past few songs I mentioned is the sole reason why this relaxing come down was necessary in the first place. The track that I mentioned was my favorite at the beginning of this video, Southern Life, What It Must Be Like. This song was like love at first listen for me. The groove in this one is so undeniably powerful that I could listen to it over and over and still feel like starting it back up again. With it being another track about understanding people with different backgrounds and perspectives, we have now confirmed that this must have been a central theme that was at the forefront of Sharon Van Etten's mind as she was crafting the lyrics for this album. Vocally, Southern Life contains the most conviction of anything else on the album, and wow does it work. To wrap up my overall thoughts on Sharon Van Etten and the attachment theory, I first have to acknowledge how tight her and her band sound together. There are so many strengths within these tracks, but the backbone of it all is their cohesiveness. It feels like four people having fun in a room, never dwelling too much on the same sounds, as they seem unafraid of experimenting and keeping an open mind. I can just imagine her and her band feeling loose in the same room together as these tracks emerged, and what we're left with as listeners is an album that was not only good on the first listen, but just keeps getting better as I'm now about 10 listens in. And the bass lines on this album are superb, truly a masterclass at holding down the low end with style and class the entire time. Quite frankly, this album gives me goosebumps at times. There are albums that come and go, and they might not have a single thing wrong with them, but they're missing that it factor. They're missing that one thing you can't explain that sets the truly great pieces of art apart from the types of music that won't be treasured in the long run. But Sharon Van Etten and the attachment theory delivers that elusive feeling for me, and for that, I'm confident giving this a 5 out of 5 star rating. For me to think about this in any other way would be a disservice to how this album makes me feel, and I've already been researching some of her upcoming shows to see these tracks being performed live. Hopefully that can happen, and I can give you all my thoughts on that as well, but for this video, I'm about to sign off because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a fan of delayed gratification, and now it's time for me to cash in on that as I get to just vibe to this album some more. In the meantime, I'd also love to know your thoughts on this album, so be sure to drop those in the comments, and I'd also love to see some suggestions of other new albums you want me to see me cover in the future. You all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.